You no longer belong to this family. Get out of here. Megan yelled this at me while I was sitting at her dining table, having arrived on time with grocery bags after cooking for 3 hours for her entire family. But I didn't get up, I didn't cry, I just looked at her intently and thought, mark this date well, my daughter. Stay with this story until the very last moment. The ending will astonish you. Today you didn't just lose your mother, today you destroyed your own future. While she continued to scream at me with that red face of fury I've known since she was a child, my mind was already working, already calculating, already deciding. Because at 70, you learn that words can hurt, but actions hurt more, and I was very clear about what my actions would be. I'd arrived at Megan's house at 11:30 a.m. just like every Sunday for the past 2 years. I rang the doorbell carrying 2 heavy bags of fresh ingredients I had bought at the farmer's market early that morning. As Caleb opened the door without even greeting me, just stepping aside for me to pass. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. Megan was on the couch with her phone and didn't even look up when I walked in. My granddaughter, Shamali, was the only one who ran to hug me as if I were the most important person in the world. At least to her, I still was. Grandma, Alice, did you bring me something yummy? She asked me with that smile that always melted my heart. I told her I had brought everything to make her favorite meal, and her little eyes lit up. I went straight to the kitchen and started preparing lunch, as always. I took the meat out of the bags, chopped the vegetables, put the rice on to boil. This was the routine every Sunday. I arrived, I cooked, I served, and they ate what I prepared with my money and my labor. But this Sunday was going to be different, even though I didn't know it yet. Megan appeared in the kitchen, only to complain that I had bought yellow bell peppers instead of red ones. Mom, I've told you 1,000 times that Molly doesn't eat yellow peppers. Why do you never listen to me? I explained that the red ones were too expensive. 30 house on a pound, but she just scoffed and returned to her couch, her phone, her world where I only existed when she needed something. Caleb came over while I was stirring the sauce and started on his favorite topic, my house. Mrs. Alice, I was thinking it would be good for you to sell that big house. You're too old to live alone, and we could help you invest the money. He always spoke with that fake smile, as if he were doing me a huge favor by wanting to take my asset. I kept cooking without responding. I had heard this conversation hundreds of times. They planned my life, my money, my future, as if I were a child incapable of making decisions. But I listened to everything, registered everything, stored every word, every dismissive gesture, every display of greed in my memory. Molly stayed with me in the kitchen, telling me about her new teacher, the science project she had to do, everything that was truly important in her small world. She was the only one who saw me as a person, not as an ATM with legs. I gave her a small piece of meat to taste, and she hugged me tightly. "Grandma, you cook better than Mom," she whispered in my ear. And I smiled despite everything. When I finished cooking, I set the table in Megan's dining room. She was still glued to her phone. Caleb was watching television, and I was still the invisible servant who appeared every Sunday to wait on them. I served the plates, called everyone to eat, and sat in the chair that was always mine, the most uncomfortable one, the one with its back to the window. I truly wonder if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. It was during the meal when Caleb brought up the topic of the will, without delicacy, without respect, as if he were asking to pass the salt. "Mrs. Alice, my cousin works with a very good lawyer. We could schedule an appointment this week to review the will. It's better to have everything well organized, don't you think?" Megan put down her fork and looked at me with those calculating eyes that gave me the chills. "Yes, Mom, it's the smartest thing to do. That way we avoid future problems." Future problems. They talked about my death as if it were something they eagerly awaited, as if they were already counting the days. I told them I already had a lawyer, that my paperwork was in order, but that only angered them more. They didn't want me to have control over anything. They wanted me to be completely dependent on them, to hand over everything without question. Caleb insisted with arguments about taxes and inheritance, and Megan tensed up when I refused to give them details. The tension grew when Molly accidentally spilled a little orange juice on the tablecloth. It was minor, a child's mistake, but Megan exploded as if the world was ending. She yelled at the child with a cruelty that broke my heart. And when I defended my granddaughter, when I said it wasn't a big deal, Megan directed all her fury toward me. You always defend her. You always contradict me in front of my daughter. It seems like you only come here to cause me trouble. Her screams filled the entire house. Molly started to cry, and Caleb continued eating as if nothing were happening, like the coward he had always been. I got up to comfort Molly, but Megan stopped me. Don't touch her. Don't spoil her anymore. I'm sick of your onions and you coming here to bother us. Coming to cook for them with my money was bothering them. And then came the moment that would change everything. Megan stood up, pointed her finger at me as if I were a criminal, and yelled those words I will never forget. You no longer belong to this family. Get out of here. The silence that followed was deafening. Molly was crying silently. Caleb kept chewing as if nothing had happened. And I just sat there, processing what had just occurred. The daughter I had raised with so much love, educated and supported through every difficult moment of her life, was kicking me out of her house like garbage. But instead of breaking me, something hardened inside me. Something that had been dormant for too long woke up with a force that surprised me. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve. I got up slowly, very slowly, picked up my purse, and walked towards the door without saying a word. Megan continued yelling behind me, but I wasn't listening anymore. In my mind, I was already dialing phone numbers, making appointments, and making the most important decisions of my life. Before opening the door, I turned and looked directly into her eyes. Megan, I said with a calm that surprised even myself, mark this date well. Today, you didn't just lose your mother. Today, you destroyed your own future. I left that house, closing the door softly, as if I were closing a chapter of my life forever. As I walked towards my car, I took out my phone and dialed Aunt Rose's number, my best friend. Rose, I said when she answered. I need you to come with me to the bank tomorrow, and then to the lawyer. It's time to make some very important changes. And the next day I woke up at 6 a.m., as always, not because I had to, but because at 70, the body has its own schedule. I made myself a strong coffee, opened the curtains of my bedroom, and looked at my reflection in the vanity mirror. Alice Perez, I said to myself, it's time for you to remember who you really are. My house was silent, but it wasn't the sad silence of loneliness. It was the silence of peace, of being able to eat breakfast without anyone telling me how to spend my money or what to do with my life. I turned on the television to watch the news while I ate breakfast, and then I checked my phone. I had several messages in the group chat from my walking club friends. Rose had written, "Good morning, beauties. Who's up for a walk in the park today?" And Mary replied, and with a fire emoji, "I'm in. Need to burn off yesterday's pizza." Antonia sent a picture of her healthy breakfast with the message, "Ready to conquer the world, ladies." I wrote in the group, "See you at 8. I have important news to tell you." Rose immediately sent me a private message. "Everything okay, friend? You sounded worried yesterday." I replied, "Everything's perfect, better than ever." I got dressed in my favorite athletic pants, the pink ones with white stripes I had bought last month, my new sneakers that were still perfect, and my baseball cap that Molly gave me for my birthday. I took a selfie in the mirror and uploaded it to Facebook with the caption, "Ready for a new day, full of blessings." I drove to Central Park, where we meet every morning. My 2018 sedan was still running perfectly, and I was still driving without issues, despite what Megan always said about the elderly behind the wheel. I arrived on time, as always, and Rose, Mary, and Antonia were already there waiting for me with their water bottles and their good morning and smiles. "What happened yesterday?" Rose asked me as we started walking on the trail. "You sounded very serious on the phone." The four of us walked at a good pace, as we had been doing for 3 years, ever since we decided that old age wasn't going to defeat us without a fight. I told them everything that had happened at Megan's house. Every scream, every slight, every hurtful word. My friends listened in silence, shaking their heads with indignation. When I finished, Mary was the first to speak. Alice, that girl needs a lesson she'll never forget. Kids these days think parents owe them everything, Antonia added, but they don't think they owe us anything. Rose walked beside me, squeezing my arm. What are you going to do, friend? I'm going to teach her that her mother isn't some fool, I told them. Today, we're going to the bank and then to the lawyer. It's time for Megan to learn that actions have consequences. We finished our 1-hour walk and sat on our usual bench to do our stretching exercises. A group of older ladies exercising as if we were 20-year-olds. I love that part of my routine, feeling strong, capable, alive. After saying goodbye to the girls, I stopped by Mrs. Carter's beauty salon. I needed a touch-up on my hair color and a manicure. Carter has known me for 15 years and always makes me look brand new. You look radiant, Mrs. Alice, she said as she applied the dye. Special occasion? Let's just say I have some very important meetings, I replied. I need to look impeccable. Carter laughed. You always look impeccable. You're one of those women who never goes unnoticed. While she was drying my hair, I checked my bank account on my phone app. Thank God, my husband and I were proactive. We have a good pension, a lifetime of savings from hard work, and the house is fully paid off. Megan and Caleb have always thought I'm a silly old lady who doesn't understand money, but they are completely wrong. I took out my digital planner and checked my contacts. Mr. Henderson, my trusted lawyer. I called him while Carter was doing my nails. Mr. Henderson, this is Alice Perez. I need to make some important changes to my will. Could you see me this afternoon? Of course, Mrs. Perez. Is everything all right? He asked with genuine concern. Everything is perfect, I replied. I just need to update a few things. How about 4 p.m.? We confirmed the appointment. Rose arrived at the salon just as I was finishing up. We had planned to go to the bank together and then to the lawyer. You look gorgeous, she said. Ready to conquer the world. We drove together in my car to the city center. At the bank, I asked to speak with the manager. Mr. Frederick has known me for years and always attends to me personally. Mrs. Perez, how can I help you? I explained that I wanted to review all my accounts, my investments, and make some transfers. Any problem? He asked. On the contrary, I said, I want to make sure my money is exactly where I want it to be. We reviewed everything, the savings account, the certificates of deposit, the checking account. Everything was in order. Everything was solely in my name as it should be. Mr. Frederick, I said before leaving, if anyone comes asking about my accounts or trying to get information about my finances, even if they claim to be family, do not give them any details. Only I can access my information. He nodded professionally. Of course, Mrs. Perez. All your information is completely confidential. Rose and I went to lunch at our favorite diner before the appointment with the lawyer. Are you sure about what you're going to do? She asked me while we shared a sandwich. Completely sure, I replied. Megan needs to learn that mothers have dignity too. I showed Rose the photos I had on my phone from the previous Sunday. I had discreetly taken a few during lunch, Megan glued to her phone while I cooked, Caleb watching television while I set the table, Molly crying after being scolded. These photos remind me why I'm doing the right thing, I told her. I arrived on time at Mr. Henderson's office at 4 p.m. His secretary offered me coffee and immediately showed me in. The lawyer is a serious, professional man who has always treated me with respect. Mrs. Perez, tell me what you need. I explained the situation with Megan and Caleb, how they treated me, how they talked about my money as if it were already theirs, how they disrespected me right to my face. The lawyer listened without interrupting, taking notes in his notebook. I understand perfectly, he said when I finished. Unfortunately, it's more common than people think. What changes do you want to make exactly? I took out a sheet of paper where I'd written down everything I wanted to modify. I'd been thinking about this all night. Chen, I want to completely change the beneficiaries, I told him with a firmness that surprised even myself. Molly will still receive what is due to her, but everything else will go to other people and organizations who truly value me. The lawyer reviewed my current will and began to take notes on the changes. Are you absolutely sure about this decision, Mrs. Perez? It's a very drastic change. I told him I had never been sure of anything in my life. We worked for 2 hours preparing the new will. Every word, every clause, every detail was exactly as I wanted it. When we finished, I felt liberated in a way I hadn't experienced in years. The document will be ready to sign on Wednesday, the lawyer told me. You will need witnesses. I told him that Rose and my other friends would be delighted to be witnesses. Perfect. I'll see you on Wednesday at 10 a.m. That night, I arrived home feeling like a new woman. I prepared a light dinner, put on my favorite pajamas, and sat in my living room to watch my 9 p.m. show. My phone rang several times. It was Megan. I didn't answer any calls. Before going to bed, I wrote in my personal diary. My new life began today. Today, I decided that Alice Perez deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. Tomorrow, Megan will start to understand that mothers know how to defend themselves, too. The following days passed in a strange calm. Megan called me 5 times on Monday, 7 on Tuesday, and I didn't answer any of them. Not because I was angry, but because I had finally understood something I should have understood years ago. I'm not obligated to be available for someone who treats me badly, even if she is my own daughter. On Tuesday morning, while having my coffee and checking Facebook, I saw that Megan had uploaded a family photo from the previous Sunday. The image showed her, Caleb, and Molly smiling in the dining room with the plates I had prepared still on the table. The caption read, "Sunday family time, blessed with my perfect little family." She didn't even mention that I had been there, that I cooked, that I had bought everything. It was as if I had been erased from history. Rose called me early. "Did you see Megan's Facebook?" "I saw it," I replied. Nothing surprises me anymore. Rose scoffed on the other end of the phone. "That girl has no shame. How can she upload a picture of the meal you made without even mentioning you?" "Better that way," I said. "She's doing me the favor of showing everyone who she really is." We arranged to meet at the park as usual, but first I had to stop by the bank to sign some documents that Mr. Frederick had prepared for me. While I was getting dressed, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, thinking it might be important. "Mrs. Alice?" It was a young woman's voice. "This is Fiat Jessica, the girlfriend of Fiat Ethan, Caleb's cousin. Could we talk for a moment?" This surprised me. Why would my son-in-law's cousin's girlfriend be calling me? "Of course, tell me," and I replied. Jessica lowered her voice as if telling me a secret. "Ma'am, I don't know if you know, but Caleb and Megan have been talking to Ethan about getting a loan. They say you are going to give them the down payment for a business, but they need the money up front." My blood ran cold. "A loan for what?" Jessica hesitated for a moment. "To open a clothing boutique. Caleb says you've already agreed, but the money is slow to come out because banks are slow with older people." Older people, as if being 70 meant I was an idiot. "Jessica," I said with all the calm I could muster, "I have never discussed any business or any loan with them. How much money are they asking for?" The answer left me speechless. 200,000. Caleb says it's nothing to you because you have a lot of money saved. I thanked Jessica for telling me and asked her not to tell Caleb or Megan that we had spoken. I hung up the phone, trembling with indignation. Not only had they disrespected me to my face, but they were using my name to secure a loan, promising others that I would pay. I immediately called Mr. Henderson. "Counselor, I need to speed up the will process. Could we sign it today instead of Wednesday?" His secretary said yes, that the document was already ready. "Perfect, I'll be there in 2 hours." I called Rose, Mary, and Antonia. I explained the urgency, and they all agreed to accompany me as witnesses. "Those shameless people won't keep taking advantage of you," Mary said with the vehemence I love about her. "It's about time you put a stop to them." On the way to the lawyer's office, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Megan had escalated from calls to WhatsApp messages. The first one said, "Mom, why aren't you answering me? Are you okay?" The second, "I'm worried. If you don't respond, I'm going to come to your house." The third, "Mom, don't be so proud. Everyone has bad days." Bad days. As if humiliating me in front of my granddaughter was just a bad day, as if treating me like a servant was just a bad moment, as if using my name to secure loans was a harmless prank. At the office, Mr. Henderson greeted me with complete professionalism. We reviewed the new will line by line. Molly remained a beneficiary of a significant portion because she was not to blame for anything, but everything else had changed completely. The house, which was what Megan and Caleb were most interested in, would now be donated to a foundation that helps elderly women in situations of abandonment. The main savings would be divided among charitable organizations that genuinely make a difference in the community. A portion went to Rose, who had been more of a sister than a friend all these years. "Are you sure about all these changes, Mrs. Perez?" the lawyer asked me one last time. "I've never been sure of anything," I replied. "I want my money to go to people who will truly value it and use it for good." I signed every page with a tranquility that surprised me. Rose, Mary, and Antonia signed as witnesses, and they all hugged me when we finished. "I admire you so much," Antonia said. "I wish more women had your courage." We left the office and went to celebrate with coffee and cake at the nearby cafe. We were chatting and laughing when my phone rang again. This time it was a landline number. I answered, and it was Caleb's voice. "Mrs. Allison, good afternoon. I'm sorry to bother you, but Megan is very worried because you're not answering her phone. Is everything okay?" His voice sounded saccharine, fake, as always. "Everything is perfect, Caleb," I replied. "Do you need anything specific?" "Well, yes, we wanted to talk to you about a very good business opportunity, an investment that could benefit the whole family." There was the real reason for all the concern. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about my money. "What kind of business are we talking about?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Caleb got excited, thinking I had taken the bait. "A clothing boutique, Mrs. Alice. The location is perfect in a very commercial area. We just need the initial capital." "And how much would that initial capital be?" I feigned interest. $200,000. "But it's a safe investment, Mrs. Alice. We'd be seeing profits in 6 months." Exactly the same amount Jessica had told me. "Caleb," I said in a very sweet voice, "that investment sounds interesting. Why don't you come to my house tomorrow so you can show me the business plan? Bring all the paperwork, all the numbers. I want to see exactly what my money will be spent on." Caleb got so excited that his voice almost cracked. "Of course, Mrs. Alice. What time works best for you?" I told him 3 p.m. would be perfect. "Excellent. I'll tell Megan. She'll be very happy." I hung up the phone and my friends looked at me with curiosity. "Are you going to give them the money?" Bose asked me. "Of course not," I replied, "but tomorrow they are going to have a surprise they will never forget." That night, I arrived home and prepared everything for the next day. I made copies of my new will, printed the WhatsApp conversation where Megan had disrespected me, and prepared a folder with all the receipts from the previous Sundays, the market, the ingredients, everything I had spent of my own money to cook for them. I also prepared my digital voice recorder, the one I used to remember doctor's appointments, and tomorrow I was going to record the entire conversation because I knew that later Megan and Caleb would deny everything, would say I was confused, that I misunderstood things. Before going to bed, I wrote in my diary, "Tomorrow, Megan and Caleb are going to discover that their mother is not the silly old lady they thought. They are going to learn that actions have consequences, and they are going to understand that respect is not begged for. It is earned." I slept peacefully, more peacefully than I had in months. For the first time in a long time, I felt that I was in control of my own life. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. At exactly 3 p.m., Megan and Caleb knocked on my door. I watched them arrive from my living room window. She was carrying a pink folder that looked new. He had a laptop tucked under his arm. They were smiling, dressed up, as if going to an important business meeting. The irony. Megan gave me a kiss on the cheek as if nothing had happened the previous Sunday. "You look great. Are you feeling better now?" As if my problem had been the flu and not the humiliation she had put me through in front of my granddaughter. Caleb hugged me with that fake familiarity that bothered me so much. "Mrs. Alice, thank you so much for having us. We are very excited to show you this opportunity." They sat down in my living room as if they owned the place. Caleb immediately opened his laptop. "Would you like some coffee, Aunt Sheshi?" I asked them with my best hostess smile. Megan nodded distractedly while reviewing her paper. "Yes, Mom, thanks. But don't go to too much trouble. This won't take long. Don't go to too much trouble." As if serving them were a burden to me. I went to the kitchen and prepared the coffee, discreetly activating my digital voice recorder. I placed it on the tray along with the cups, hidden among the napkins. Every word they said was going to be recorded for posterity. I returned to the living room and served the coffee. Caleb already had his presentation ready on the computer screen. Look, Mrs. Alice, this is the location. He showed me photos of a commercial space that looked very nice. It's in a perfect area with a lot of young people traffic, which is our target market. Megan took some papers out of her pink folder. Mom, all the numbers are here. The initial investment is 200,000, but look at the profit projections. She showed me some graphs that looked like they were drawn by a child with numbers they had clearly invented. It looks interesting, I said, slowly sipping my coffee. And why do you need me to invest? Can't you get a loan at the bank? Caleb and Megan quickly looked at each other. Well, Mrs. Alice, banks are very complicated. They ask for a lot of requirements and charge very high interest. Besides, Mom, Megan added with that sweet voice she used when she wanted something, we thought it would be nice for it to be a family business. You would be our partner, not just our investor. Partner, and as if I would have any real control over the money. And what guarantees do you offer me? I asked them. Caleb got nervous. Guarantees? Well, Mrs. Alice, we are family. Our word should be enough. Megan nodded. Mom, since when do you need guarantees from your own daughter? Since that daughter yelled at me that I don't belong to her family, I thought. But I didn't say it. Instead, I continued with my questions. Have you researched the competition? Do you know how many clothing stores there are in that area? Caleb mumbled something about how their idea was different, but he didn't have real numbers. And if the business doesn't work, I asked, how will you give me back my investment? Megan became impatient. Mom, why are you thinking so negatively? The business is going to work perfectly. They had no plan B. They had nothing but dreams and my money. I decided to change tactics. Megan, after what happened last Sunday, I'm surprised you're coming to ask me for money. Her face changed immediately. Oh, Mom, I already said everyone has bad days. Don't be resentful. Resentful. I stared at her. Daughter, you yelled at me that I don't belong to the family. You kicked me out of your house, and now you come asking me for $200,000, as if nothing happened. Caleb tried to intervene. Mrs. Alice, families always have disagreements. The important thing is to move forward. Megan sighed dramatically. Fine, Mom. I apologize for Sunday. You know how I get when I'm stressed, but that has nothing to do with the business. An insincere apology just to get the money. You know what? I said, getting up from my chair. Let me think about it. It's a lot of money and I need to be sure. Megan turned pale then. Think about it. Mom, we've been working on this for weeks. The landlord needs an answer this week. Caleb closed his laptop with barely concealed frustration. Mrs. Alice, and with all due respect, this opportunity won't last forever. If we don't take the location now, someone else will. Pressure. They always use pressure when they didn't get what they wanted immediately. I understand, I said calmly, but my $200,000 isn't pocket change. I need to consult with my lawyer, review my finances, be completely sure. Megan stood up abruptly. Your lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer? We're your family. Precisely because you are my family, I replied. I want to do things right. If we are going to be partners, we need a legal contract that protects everyone. Caleb also stood up. Mrs. Alice, I think you're complicating something very simple. Megan started putting her papers away with jerky movements. Mom, sometimes I feel like you don't trust us after everything we've done for you. Everything they had done for me, like treating me like a servant every Sunday. What exactly have you done for me? I asked with genuine curiosity. Megan fell silent. Caleb mumbled something about visits and company, but couldn't give concrete examples because he didn't have any. Fine, Megan said, think about it, but don't take too long because as Caleb says, the opportunity won't last forever. They headed towards the door with a coldness that completely contrasted with the warmth with which they had arrived. One more question, I said before they left. Have you already told anyone that I'm going to invest in the business? Caleb immediately denied it. No, Mrs. Alice, we've only talked between ourselves. Liar. Perfect, I smiled, because it would be very uncomfortable if you had promised my money before having my answer. I walked them to the door and said goodbye with the same fake smile they had used with me. When they left, I sat in my living room and turned off the recorder. I had the entire conversation registered, their lies, their lack of planning, their emotional pressure, their blatant manipulation, but above all, I had the confirmation that they only saw me as a walk-in I called Rose immediately. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as I expected, I replied. Tomorrow I'm going to call them to give them my final answer. And it's going to be an answer they will never forget. The next day, I woke up earlier than usual. I had decided that this Thursday was going to be the day that Alice Perez took complete control of her life. I had breakfast calmly, dressed in my favorite navy blue suit, the one that makes me feel powerful, and left the house with a tranquility I hadn't felt in years. First, I went to the bank. Mr. Frederick greeted me in his private office, as always. Mrs. Perez, how can I help you today? I explained that I needed to make some important changes to my accounts. I want to change all my passwords, update my beneficiaries, and establish new security measures. Mr. Frederick took notes as I spoke. Any specific problem, ma'am? I told him about Jessica's call and how Megan and Caleb were using my name to secure loans. I want to make sure no one can access my information or use my name without my express authorization. Of course, he said professionally. We are going to change all your access codes and put a special alert on your account. If anyone mentions your name for any financial transaction, they will call us immediately to confirm with you. Perfect. I also took the opportunity to withdraw a considerable amount of cash, not because I was going to spend it, but because I wanted to have it available for what I had planned. Mr. Frederick processed everything without asking unnecessary questions. Do you need any special documentation? He asked. Just the updated account statements, I replied. After the bank, I went to Mr. Henderson's office to pick up the certified copies of my new will. His secretary handed them to me in a sealed manila envelope. Mr. Henderson wants you to know that everything is perfectly in order, she said. Your previous will has been officially revoked. My next stop was Rose's house. I needed my best friend to be present for what I was about to do. I found her watering her plants in the garden. Ready for the show? She asked me with a mischievous smile. Ready, and I replied. Can you come with me to my house? I'm going to call Megan. Rose immediately took off her gardening gloves. I wouldn't miss this for the world, she said. I've been waiting for years for you to put a stop to those abusers. We drove to my house in my car, chatting about everything that had happened in the last few days. At my house, I prepared everything as if it were a serious business meeting. I set the dining table with a tablecloth, took out my best coffee set, and arranged all the documents I had prepared, copies of the new will, the receipts of all the expenses from the Sundays before, the transcription of the recording from the previous day. Are you nervous? Rose asked me while we arranged the chairs. Not at all, I replied. On the contrary, I feel free. For the first time in years, I'm going to say exactly what I think, without fear of the consequences. Rose hugged me. I admire you so much, friend. I dialed Megan's number at 2 p.m. and she answered on the second ring. Mom, have you thought about the business? Her voice sounded anxious, hopeful. Yes, daughter, I've made my decision. Can you come to the house with Caleb? I have several things to tell you. Of course! Megan got excited. Does in an hour work for you? I told her perfect, that I would wait for them at 3 p.m. Mom, can I ask you what your decision was? I pretended the line cut out. Hello, Mom. I hung up the phone smiling. Rose and I sat down to wait. What do you think they'll say? She asked. They'll be furious, I replied. They'll say I'm crazy, that I'm being manipulated, that I don't know what I'm doing, but for the first time, I won't care what they think. At 3 p.m. sharp, they arrived. This time, they were more relaxed. Megan even brought a bottle of champagne. To celebrate our partnership, she said when I opened the door. Caleb carried flowers. For the best mother-in-law in the world, he said with that fake smile I knew so well. Please come in, I said with complete formality, and I was waiting for you. Rose was sitting in the living room, and Megan was surprised to see her. Hello, Mrs. Rose. I didn't know you were visiting. Rose smiled. Alice asked me to be present as a witness. Caleb got slightly nervous. I said, witness to what? I invited them to sit at the dining table where I had everything prepared. Witness to our conversation, I explained. Since you are going to handle my money, I want everything to be very clear from the beginning. Megan and Caleb sat across from me with the bottle of champagne and flowers still in their hands. Well, Mom, Megan said, rubbing her hands, what is your decision? I looked her directly in the eyes. My decision is no. The silence that followed was deafening. Megan blinked several times as if she hadn't understood. No, us what? She finally asked. I'm not going to invest in your business, I told them clearly. I'm not going to give you the $200,000. Caleb leaned forward. Mrs. Alice, may I ask why? His voice was still controlled, but it no longer sounded kind. Of course, I replied. There are several reasons. I took out the transcription of the previous day's recording. First, you lied to me yesterday. Caleb told me you hadn't spoken to anyone about my investment, but I know you've already promised my money to secure a $200,000 loan. Both their faces turned pale. Second, I continued, taking out the receipts. For 2 years, I have spent my own money every Sunday to cook for you, buy your food, and be treated as your servant. Here are all the receipts. It's over $20,000 out of my own pocket. Megan tried to interrupt. Mom, we never asked you to. I raised my hand to silence her. Third, I took out the photos I had discreetly taken the Sundays before. These photos clearly show how you treat me in your house. Caleb watching television while I cook, you on the phone while I clean, Molly crying because you yelled at her. And fourth, I took out the manila envelope with my new will. Last Sunday, you told me I don't belong to your family. You yelled at me to get out. Well, daughter, I took your advice very seriously. I opened the envelope and placed the copies of the will on the table. This is my new will, signed yesterday before a notary. Molly is still a beneficiary of a portion because she is not to blame for anything, but everything else, including this house, will go to charitable organizations and people who genuinely value me. Megan stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. You can't do that. That's my inheritance. I'm your only daughter. Caleb remained paralyzed, looking at the papers as if they were a death sentence. Your inheritance, I said, standing up as well. It was the love and respect I had for you. But you decided to throw it in the trash last Sunday. Actions have consequences. Alice, are you crazy? She screamed at me. Rose is putting ideas in your head. The neighbors are going to think you've lost your mind. Rose stood up. Alice is more sane than ever, girl. What she lost was the patience to tolerate your disrespect. Caleb finally reacted. Mrs. Alice, this is madness. You can't make such important decisions over a fit of anger. A fit of anger. As if 2 years of humiliation were just a passing tantrum. You know what? I said, walking towards the door. You're right about one thing. I no longer belong to your family because a real family doesn't treat their elders this way. A real family doesn't see their parents as ATMs. Megan followed me to the door, crying with rage. You'll die alone. No one will take care of you. You'll regret this. I turned around one last time, Daughter, I prefer to die alone with dignity than to live surrounded by people who only want me for my money. I opened the door wide. Now, please, get out of my house and don't come back until you learn to treat your mother with respect. They left furiously, Caleb mumbling insults that I preferred not to hear clearly. When they were gone, Rose and I stood in silence for a moment. Then she started clapping. Bravo, Alice! That was masterful! We hugged, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely free. And the next day was Friday, my regular visit to Mrs. Carter's beauty salon. I arrived early because I wanted to look impeccable for what I had planned. Carter immediately noticed that something had changed in me. You look radiant, Mrs. Alice. Did something good happen? I smiled as she applied the dye. Let's just say I finally put things in their place. While she was drying my hair, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Megan had started a campaign of calls since 7 a.m. I also had messages from unknown numbers, surely distant relatives she had contacted to pressure me. I didn't answer any. Mrs. Alice, Carter said while doing my nails, my sister lives in the same neighborhood as your daughter. She says there was a lot of shouting yesterday. Is everything okay? I briefly explained what had happened. Carter shook her head with understanding. These young people nowadays don't respect their elders. You did the right thing. After the salon, I went to the mall where Rose worked at a clothing boutique. It was Friday afternoon and there were a lot of people. Rose saw me arrive and waved from afar. How are you feeling after yesterday? She asked when I approached her counter. Better than ever, I replied. Have you talked to Mary and Antonia? Rose nodded. I told them everything. They are so proud of you. Mary says she wishes she had your courage to put a stop to her daughter-in-law. We laughed. Family problems were more common than people admitted. We were chatting when I saw a familiar person entering the store. It was Jessica, Caleb's cousin's girlfriend, the one who had warned me about the loan. She approached timidly. "Mrs. Alice, could we talk for a moment?" Rose discreetly stepped aside. "Of course, Jessica, what do you need?" The girl looked nervous. "Ma'am, Ethan told me that Caleb called him very upset yesterday. He said you had gone crazy and were canceling everything because of your friend's influence." My blood ran cold. The smear campaign had begun. "What else did he tell you?" I asked. "Act," Jessica lowered her voice, "that you are no longer in your right mind, that the family will have to get legal help to protect you from your friends who are manipulating you." The nerve of him. He was already planning to have me declared incompetent. I thanked Jessica for the information and asked her to let me know if she heard anything else. "Of course, ma'am. I think you are perfectly fine in the head. In fact, I think this is the first time I've seen you so sure of yourself." Rose and I left the mall straight to look for Mr. Henderson. His secretary told us he was in a hearing, but that it was urgent. He came out of his office in half an hour. "Mrs. Perez, what happened?" I told him about Caleb's threat to have me declared incompetent, he says. The lawyer immediately became serious. "That is very serious, ma'am. We need to act fast." He explained that Caleb and Megan could try to get an interdiction, a legal declaration that I am not competent to manage my own affairs. "What do we need to do?" I asked. "First, we are going to get medical evaluations to certify that you are perfectly sound of mind. Second, we are going to officially register your new will today. And third, we are going to prepare a preemptive lawsuit." We left the lawyer's office straight to the private hospital where I have my medical insurance. Dr. Reynolds, my primary care physician for 10 years, saw me immediately when I explained the urgency. "Mrs. Alice, you are perfectly lucid. You've always been one of my smartest and most organized patients." He gave me several cognitive tests, memory tests, and basic psychological evaluations. Everything came out perfect. "I'm going to give you a complete medical certificate," he said. "Any judge who sees these results will confirm that you are in full possession of your mental faculties." On Saturday morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time, go out for breakfast alone at my favorite diner. I was enjoying my pancakes when I saw someone I wasn't expecting walk in. My friend, Antonia Miller, Megan's godmother. Antonia saw me and came directly to my table. "Alice, what a surprise to find you here." She sat down without being invited. "Megan called me yesterday, very worried. She told me what happened." Here came the first organized attack. "What exactly did she tell you?" I asked with genuine curiosity. Antonia sighed dramatically. "That you had a disagreement and that you reacted very exaggeratedly, that you changed your will out of spite, and that your friends are filling your head with ideas." "And what do you think?" I asked, calmly sipping my coffee. Antonia leaned forward. "Alice, I've known you for 30 years. You are an intelligent woman, but at our age, sometimes we make emotional decisions that we later regret." "Antonia," I said, looking her directly in the eye, "did you know that Megan yelled at me, that I don't belong to her family? Did you know she treats me like a servant every Sunday? Did you know they are using my name to secure a loan without my authorization?" Her expression changed. "No," she admitted. "Megan didn't tell me those details." I explained everything that had really happened without omitting anything. When I finished, Antonia was silent for a long moment. "I didn't know things were that bad," she finally said. "Do you know what the saddest thing is?" I asked her. "That Megan is more worried about the money she lost than the mother she hurt. At no point has she offered a sincere apology. She just wants everything to go back to how it was before." Antonia paid for her coffee and stood up. "Alice, I'm going to talk to Megan. This can't continue." I watched her walk away and knew that at least one person had understood my point of view. On Sunday, I decided not to stay home waiting for the call I knew would come. Instead, Rose, Mary, and I went for a walk in the park and then to eat at a new restaurant. We were ordering our food when my phone rang. It was Megan. "Mom, we need to talk," she said in a voice that tried to sound controlled. "I'm at your house. Where are you?" I told her I was eating with my friends. "Can you come over? It's important." I told her she could wait for me or come back another day. "Mom, please, I brought Molly. She wants to see you." There it was, using my granddaughter as an emotional weapon. "Megan," I said, "Molly is always welcome in my house." But if you come to keep disrespecting me, you'd better go back home." There was a long pause. "I'm not coming to fight," she finally said. "I'm coming to talk like adults." I told her I would be home in an hour. I finished eating calmly with my friends, knowing that this time it would be Megan who had to wait. When I arrived at my house, I found them sitting on the porch. Molly ran to hug me as always. "Grandma, I missed you so much." Megan remained seated with a face I couldn't decipher whether it was regret or strategy. "Come in, please," I said. This time it was going to be on my terms, in my house, with my rules. The final confrontation was about to begin. Molly clung to my hand as we entered the house. "Grandma, Mom says you're mad at us. Is that true?" My heart broke seeing her worried little face. "I'm not mad at you, my love. I could never be mad at you." I looked her directly in the eyes. "I'm just sad because adults sometimes behave badly." Megan sat on the sofa with her hands clasped, a posture I hadn't seen in her since she was a teenager. "Mom," she finally started, "I came because we need to fix this. Molly doesn't understand why you don't come over on Sundays anymore." "Molly," I said to my granddaughter while sitting her next to me, "did your mom explain what happened last Sunday?" The girl nodded sadly. "She said you had a very bad fight, that you yelled at her and left angry." Megan had completely changed the story. I looked at Megan with disbelief. "You told her I yelled at you? You didn't tell her you kicked me out of your house, yelling that I don't belong to the family?" Megan turned red. "Mom, this is not the time to discuss details in front of Molly." Exactly the same tactic as always, using the child to avoid facing the truth. "Molly," I said gently, "go to the kitchen and pour yourself a glass of milk. There's Jell-O in the refrigerator that I bought for you." When Molly left, I turned to Megan. "Seriously, you told her I yelled at you? You didn't tell her you kicked me out of your house, yelling that I don't belong to the family?" Megan looked away. "Mom, I was very stressed that day. I didn't think what I was saying." Finally, an admission of guilt, albeit minimal. "Caleb had problems at work. Molly was being very difficult, and you arrived with that usual attitude of criticizing everything." "What attitude?" I asked. "Defending Molly when you scolded her for spilling juice. That was my great offense." Megan sighed. "It wasn't just that, Mom. It's that you always make me feel like I don't know how to take care of my own daughter." Molly returned with her glass of milk and sat between us. "Are you fixed now?" she asked with that innocent hope of children. Megan and I looked at each other. "We are talking things out, my love," I told my granddaughter. "Mom," Megan continued after a moment, "I know I was wrong, I know I hurt you, but changing your entire will is too drastic." There it was. She didn't care about hurting me. She cared about the money she was going to lose. "Megan," I said with all the calm I could gather, "the will is just the consequence. The real problem is how you treat me, how you see me, how you only need me when you want something." Molly was watching us, not fully understanding, but sensing the tension. Megan leaned forward. "Yeah, fine, I accept that I've been inconsiderate. But, Mom, we are family. Families forgive." She used the magic word, forgive, but without any real change in behavior. "Do you remember," I said, "when your father died and I was completely alone?" Megan nodded. "You promised me you would never abandon me, that we would always be together." Her face softened a little. "And I kept my promise, Mom. I've always been there." Being there. I looked at her incredulously. "Megan, in 2 years you haven't come to visit me once without asking me for something. You haven't come to ask me how I am, to spend time with me, to talk to me. You only come when you need money or when you want me to babysit Molly." Molly looked up. "Is that true, Mom?" Megan got nervous. "Molly, adult things are complicated." The girl looked at me. "Grandma, is that why you don't come over on Sundays anymore? Because Mom doesn't visit you?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Rose. "Alice," she spoke quickly, "Caleb just passed by the store asking about you. He told my boss you are sick and that the family is worried." Megan turned pale when she heard Caleb's name. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "That I saw you yesterday perfectly well and very happy," Rose replied. "But be careful, friend. That man is saying strange things about you." I hung up and looked at Megan intently. "Where is Caleb right now?" And I asked. Megan stammered. He's at his cousin's lawyer's office." My blood ran cold. "What lawyer?" Megan didn't want to answer. "Megan, what lawyer?" "The one who is going to help us prove that you are not well," she finally confessed. "Mom, everyone is worried about you. You changed your will overnight. You don't answer the phone. You're acting differently." Molly got scared. Is Grandma sick? Megan reassured her. No, my love, she's just confused. Confused. That was going to be their strategy, to paint me as a senile old woman manipulated by my friends. I got up and went to my bedroom. I returned with the folder containing all my medical documents, the evaluations Dr. Reynolds had done, the certificates of mental capacity. I placed them in front of Megan. This is what your husband will find when he tries to declare me incompetent, I said. Complete medical exams, psychological evaluations, certificates from 3 different doctors, confirming that I am in perfect possession of my mental faculties. Megan reviewed the papers with wide eyes. When did you do all this? I explained how Jessica had warned me about their plans. Megan, you didn't leave me any other option. If you can't respect my decisions, you will have to respect them by law. My phone rang again. This time it was Mr. Henderson. Mrs. Perez, a lawyer just called me asking about your mental faculties. I told him you are legally represented and that any communication must be through me. I thanked him and hung up. Did you hear that? I said to Megan. Your husband is already pulling strings to take away my rights. Is that how he shows me he loves me? Megan stood up, agitated. Mom, we just want to protect you. Protect me from what? I yelled for the first time. From making my own decisions, from choosing how to spend my money, from deciding who deserves my respect. Molly started crying at seeing me upset. I calmed down immediately and hugged Molly. I'm sorry, my love. Adults sometimes get agitated. The girl hugged me tightly. Grandma, I don't want you to be sad. My heart broke. This child didn't deserve to be in the middle of all this. Megan, I said with a firmness that surprised me, you have 2 options. Either you tell Caleb to immediately stop his legal plans and sincerely apologize to me for everything that has happened, or this will be the last time you see your daughter in this house. Megan was paralyzed. You are forbidding me from bringing Molly? I explained that Molly would always be welcome, but that I would not allow them to keep using my granddaughter as a tool for manipulation. Think carefully, I said, walking towards the door, because this time there is no going back. Either you respect me as your mother or you leave me alone forever. I opened the door. Now go. I have important things to do. Megan left with Molly in her arms, the girl crying and asking why she couldn't stay longer with Grandma. When they were gone, I sat in my living room and for the first time in days, I cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. I had put all my cards on the table. On Monday morning, I woke up with a strange tranquility. It wasn't the calm of someone who has won a battle, but the peace of someone who has finally taken control of her own life. While having breakfast, my phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. Mrs. Perez, I have important news, he said. Your son-in-law's lawyer officially withdrew any legal proceedings against you. Apparently, when we showed him your medical evaluations and explained that you have full legal representation, he decided it wasn't worth it. I felt relieved, but not surprised. Caleb was a coward who only attacked when he thought he had an advantage. Does that mean they can't do anything else? I asked. Exactly. Your documents are in perfect order. Your mental capacity is medically certified, and your will is completely valid. After breakfast, I went to the park for my morning walk. Rose, Mary, and Antonia were already waiting for me. How do you feel after yesterday? Rose asked me. Free, I replied. Completely free. Mary walked beside me, said, My daughter saw Megan yesterday at the supermarket. She says she looked terrible, like she hadn't slept. I didn't feel joy hearing that, but not pity either. Decisions have consequences, I simply said. During our walk, I told them about the lawyer's call. Antonia applauded. It was about time those abusers learned they can't manipulate everyone. Mary added, Alice, you are an example to all of us. Many women our age need your courage. After the walk, I went to the bank to resolve some pending matters. Mr. Frederick greeted me with his usual professional smile. Mrs. Perez, everything okay with the security measures we implemented? I confirmed that everything was perfect. Has anyone else asked about my accounts? Curiously, yes, he said. A young man who said he was your son-in-law came in on Friday asking about your recent transactions. Of course, we didn't give him any information. Caleb had been very busy trying to control my life from every possible angle. Mr. Frederick, then I said, I want to make a significant donation. I explained that I wanted to donate $50,000 to the St. Joseph Senior Home, where many women like me lived abandoned by their families. That's an excellent cause. And he said, do you want your name to appear on the donation? Of course, Dad, I replied. I want it to be very clear that Alice Perez chose to help people who truly need it. The transaction was completed immediately. They gave me a certificate of the donation that I carefully kept. In the afternoon, while organizing my important papers, the doorbell rang. It was Molly, alone. My heart raced. What are you doing here, my love? Where is your mom? Molly looked sad. She's in the car. She told me to come ask you if we could talk. I went out to the porch and saw Megan in her car, parked on the street. She looked exactly as Mary had said, terrible, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had spent several days without sleeping well. She didn't get out of the car. She just looked at me from afar. Molly, I said, kneeling down to her height, did your mom send you to talk to me? The girl nodded. She told me to tell you that she won't bother you anymore, that she just wants things to go back to how they were before. As before, that was exactly the mentality that had caused this whole problem. Megan wanted everything to return to normal without changing anything about her behavior. Molly, I said, taking her little hands, go tell your mom that if she wants to talk to me, she has to get out of the car and come herself. I'm not a child she can send messages to. Molly ran back to the car. After a few minutes, Megan slowly got out and walked towards my house. She looked defeated, vulnerable, very different from the aggressive woman of the previous Sunday. Mom, she said when she reached the porch, can we talk? Of course, I replied, but Molly stays inside watching television. This conversation is between adults. I took Molly to the living room, put on her favorite cartoons, and returned to the porch where Megan was standing. Sit down, I said, pointing to one of the chairs. Megan sat down in silence, looking at her hands. Mom, she finally started, Caleb told me they couldn't do anything legal against you. Her voice sounded defeated. Did you expect them to be able to? I asked her directly. Megan shook her head. I don't know what I expected. Everything got out of control so quickly. She was silent for a moment. Is it true that you donated money to the senior home? $50,000. Yes, I confirmed. Money that was once going to be part of your inheritance. Megan turned pale. Why, Mom? Why do you prefer to give it to strangers than to your own family? Because those strangers treat me with more respect than I've received in my own house, I replied without hesitation. Because when I go to visit them, they see me as a person, not as a walk-in 18. Megan started crying silently. Mom, I know I was wrong. I know I treated you badly, but are you really going to throw away 35 years of being mother and daughter over a fight? A fight. She was still minimizing everything that had happened. Megan, I said, leaning forward, this is not about a fight. This is about 2 years of disrespect, of treating me like a servant, of using my name to secure money, of planning to have me declared mentally incompetent when I didn't give in to your blackmail. What do you want me to do? She asked through tears. What do you need to forgive me? For the first time in a long time, she sounded sincere. I want you to respect me, I simply said. To treat me like your mother, not your employee. I want you to recognize that I have the right to make my own decisions about my money, my time, and my life, I continued. I want you to understand that you are not entitled to my inheritance just because you are my daughter. Inheritance is earned with love and respect. Megan wiped her tears. And if I really change my attitude, could you consider changing the will again? I looked at her for a long time. Wills can be changed, Megan, but trust, once broken, is very difficult to repair. I am willing to try, she said, but I need you to give me a chance. I got up from my chair and, Megan, chances are not asked for. They are earned with actions, not words. Molly ran out of the house. Are you fixed now? She asked, hugging me. Megan and I looked at each other. We are trying to fix things, I told my granddaughter, but it will take time. Molly and Megan said, say goodbye to Grandma. We have to go. Molly hugged me tightly. I love you, Grandma. Are you coming next Sunday? I looked at Megan before answering. We'll see, my love. When they left, I stayed on the porch watching the car drive away. Megan had sounded sincere, but words were easy. Real changes required time and consistent actions. That night, before going to bed, I wrote in my diary, today Megan came to ask for forgiveness. For the first time, she sounded sincere, but I'm no longer the same woman who forgave everything without demanding real changes. If she wants to recover her mother, she will have to earn it. I closed the diary, feeling that I had definitively closed a chapter of my life. What came next depended entirely on Megan's decisions, but for the first time in years, those decisions were not going to affect my inner peace. 3 months later, my life had completely changed. I woke up that Wednesday in October with the feeling of freedom that had become my new normal. I got dressed in my favorite yellow blouse, the one Megan always criticized, saying it was too youthful for my age. Today there was no one to comment on my clothes. I had breakfast calmly while reviewing the messages in the WhatsApp group with my walking club friends. Rose had uploaded a picture of the flowers in her garden. Mary shared a new recipe. Antonia sent a funny meme about modern grandmothers. I wrote, "Good morning, beauties, ready to conquer the park." During these months, I had established a routine that filled me with satisfaction. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, walk with the girls. Tuesdays, computer classes at the community center. Thursdays, volunteer work at the St. Joseph Senior Home. Saturdays, beauty salon and shopping. Sundays, time for myself. Sundays had become my favorite days. Instead of cooking for people who didn't value me, I now prepared my favorite food just for myself. I watched my shows, read my books, and called old friends I had lost touch with. It was incredible how much time I'd recovered to live my own life. In the park, Rose was waiting for me with a special smile. "Ellis, I have news," she said as we started our walk. "What happened?" I asked. "I saw Megan at the mall yesterday. She came over to ask me how you were. And what did you tell her?" Rose laughed. "I told her the truth, that I've never seen you so happy and so full of life." During these 3 months, Megan had tried to contact me several times. At first, there were desperate calls, then calmer WhatsApp messages, and finally silence. Mary joined our conversation. "Are you still not talking?" I nodded. Megan has to understand that relationships are built on mutual respect, not manipulation. Antonia added, "Many of us have spent years putting up with disrespect for fear of being alone. You have taught us that being alone with dignity is better than being accompanied without respect." After the walk, I went to the senior home, where I now volunteer twice a week. Mrs. Jane, the director, greeted me with her usual affection. "Alice, the ladies are waiting for you. They are excited about today's class." I had started teaching basic technology classes to the residents of the home. I taught them how to use WhatsApp to talk to their families, how to make video calls, how to browse Facebook. "Mrs. Alice," said Mrs. Hope, an 80-year-old woman. My grandchildren couldn't believe I sent them a message with emojis. Seeing the joy on their faces when they managed to connect with their loved ones filled my heart in a way I hadn't experienced in years. "You have changed our lives," said Mrs. Revengia. Before, we felt completely disconnected from the world. During the class, my phone vibrated with a message. It was an unknown number. "Grandma Alice, it's Molly. Mom lent me her phone to write to you. I miss you so much. Can I come see you?" My heart raced. Molly had learned to text. I replied immediately, "Of course you can come, my love. When do you want us to see each other?" The answer came quickly. "Mom says whenever you want. She'll bring me and pick me up when you say." That afternoon, when I arrived home, I found something unexpected at my door, a manila envelope with my name handwritten on it. I opened it with curiosity, and inside was a letter from Megan. "Mom," it began, "3 months have passed, and every day I understand more the damage I did to you." The letter continued, "I've been going to therapy. My doctor helped me understand that I treated your love as something guaranteed, as if it were a right and not a gift." I kept reading carefully. "I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I'm writing to tell you that you were right about everything. Caleb and I are getting divorced," she confessed in the letter. "I realized that he only wanted me for your money, and I only wanted you for what you could do for us. Neither relationship was real love." This truly surprised me. The letter ended, "Molly misses you every day. If you allow me to bring her, I promise it will be without conditions. Not so you come back to me, but because a child deserves to have her grandmother, and a grandmother like you deserves to be loved without self-interest." I sat in my living room to process what I had read. Megan sounded different in that letter, more mature, more aware of her mistakes. But I had already learned not to trust words alone. I called Rose to tell her about the letter. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to see Molly," I replied. but it will be here in my house with my rules. Rose agreed. That child is not to blame for anything. I texted Megan. You can bring Molly on Saturday at 2 p.m. You drop her off and pick her up at 5 p.m. The answer came immediately. Perfect, Mom. Thank you. On Saturday, they arrived on time. Megan looked different, thinner, with dark circles, but also more serene. Hello, Mom, she said, without trying to hug me. Thank you for letting me bring Molly. Her attitude was respectful, almost shy. Molly ran to hug me, as always. Grandma, I missed you so much. I picked her up and hugged her tightly. I missed you too, my love. Megan looked at us with a sad smile. I'll be back at 5 p.m., she said. If you need anything, text me. Amali and I spent a wonderful afternoon. We cooked together, played games, and watched movies. Grandma, she said while we were baking cookies, why don't Mom and Dad live together anymore? I explained with words she could understand that sometimes adults need to make difficult decisions to be happier. Are you happier now? She asked me with that brutal honesty of children. Yes, my love, I replied. I'm much happier. Molly smiled. It shows. You look prettier when you really smile. At exactly 5 o'clock p.m., Megan returned for Molly. Did she behave well? She asked me. As always, I replied. Molly said goodbye with kisses and hugs. Can I come next Saturday? I told her yes. When they left, I stood on my porch, watching the sunset. My phone chimed with a message from Rose. How did it go? I replied. Perfect. Molly is still the love of my life. That night, before going to bed, I wrote in my diary, Today I confirmed something I already knew. I can love Molly without having to tolerate Megan's disrespect. I can be a grandmother without being a victim. I fell asleep thinking about everything that had changed in those months. I had recovered my dignity, my independence, my joy of living. I had learned that true love is not begged for or blackmailed. It is given freely or not at all. Finally, after many years, I was the one deciding who to care for. I was the one choosing how to spend my time, my energy, and my love. I was the one controlling my own life. And for the first time in a long time, that made me completely happy. The names and places in this story have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. We do not share this to judge, but in the hope that someone will pause and reflect on how many mothers are silently suffering within their own homes. I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose silence to preserve peace? Or would you dare to confront everything in order to reclaim your voice? I long to hear your thoughts because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. I firmly believe that God always blesses and that courage leads us toward brighter days. As we close, I leave you with two of the channel's most beloved stories. I am certain they will surprise and inspire you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.